Testing 1, 2. Hello there. Hello. I am Joe, and welcome to another podcast aptly called Go with Joe.
Bum, bum, bum. Where are we going, Joe? All right, well, we're going to do something different. A little fun.
I'm ready for it.
We've had some nice feedback.
Some of the feedback was, I should say a question I received was if we script this. I was like,
really?
wow, that's interesting that you would say that because we don't at all. We don't have many notes. We just think about topics that are relevant to the audience, and we want them to be short and succinct and go at it, for lack of better words.
Well, and this has been all on really the business side of stuff, and I think we're going to get into some other things in terms of lifestyle and mindset in particular to really showcase kind of that go mindset of how to apply it to any part of your life, right? So in that regards, one of the questions that somebody asked, I think was on a more personal nature. It has a business component to it, but it was like, what have been the high highs and the low lows for you as an entrepreneur, founder, owner, but active, I think, participant in what you're creating and have created?
Such a good question, yet it's a complex answer. I would look at this, as my friend Alexi said, in a rule of thirds. And she had a really good way to succinctly talk about how Olympics train and how intense their training could be and is.
This is Alexi Pappas.
Alexi Pappas.
Olympic.
She's
athlete.
an Olympian. She has the world record in running for Greece. She's an actress, an author. She's just an amazing human. And her coach taught her this. And the rule of thirds goes like this. 1/3 of the time, things should feel really, really hard. Like so hard you don't even want to ever do it again. Another third, they should feel really easy. Like, oh, I could do that a lot. And then the last third should feel somewhere in the middle. And why that is important is if any one of those is over-indexing or under-indexing constantly, something is off. And that is how business is. Looking back in my career, I was so grateful for like 2 to 3 moments that were a little bit above other moments because there was just so many great moments. The first one was when I was able to get off the Ford Chicago assembly line and get a job in the marketing department at Ford. And the way in which I did that was unique in the sense that like I was unable from a technological standpoint to even apply for this job at Ford to be a salary employee because I was a UAW hourly employee. And the way I was able to get around that is I applied as someone else who was a salary employee, this gentleman named Willis Chin that I'm forever grateful for, who is an engineer. We don't look anything alike. And on paper, you look at my resume, which I attached to the application, and look at his name and things wouldn't make sense. But this was 1998,
Right.
and technology wasn't great,
Right.
and we had to apply online. The reason why that was such a pivotal moment is it changed my life in the sense that like I was on this assembly line for years. It wasn't a summer job, for 5 years, and I worked my way through school while reading textbooks in between building these cars. And I was just so upset with like myself and the fact that I wasn't getting an opportunity. And I kept trying and trying and trying. And when the door finally opened on the other end, because I pounded on it so much, I got the call from Ford to say, we want to hire you. The day that I walked out of that plant, to know I wasn't leaving Ford, but I was going to the marketing sales division. In the history of the company, like that doesn't happen really, I don't think ever, because HR didn't even know how to do it. It felt so incredible. So that was like one of the highest highs, not really like business, but it was so personal that it elevated my career. Like it gave me this platform to build what I built today.
It sounds like a mix of relief and gratitude and pride and self-awareness. Like
Everything. Like I'm so grateful for this gentleman who I did ask permission, like, can I apply as you? And the fact that I had interviewed for this job, and when I walked out of that plant, it was just like, I felt like I was in trouble.
Yeah.
Like it was so bizarre. I still to this day have nightmares that I'm behind on the assembly line reading my textbooks.
Really?
Yeah. It's like crazy, man. So that was one. The other, I have to say, was when we sold the businesses to cars.com. So I built these 2 companies. One was launched digital marketing in 2011, and then Dealer Inspire in 2013 grew them to, I hate like using employees as like the metric, but it shows like the scale of it. Got to nearly 400 employees before we sold them in 2018 and bootstrapped those businesses, meaning I didn't have outside investors.
Right.
That was unbelievable. And the morning that I knew we were going to make the announcement, I went for a run. And it was such a secret because it was a public company that was purchasing us. I couldn't really tell many people, even a lot of the key employees of the company.
Wow.
So the day that it happened was incredibly surreal. And I was just sitting there like, I can't believe this happened to me. Like, I cannot believe 10 years ago I was working at Ford and now I'm sitting here selling my company for a couple $100 million to a public company. Like, how'd I get here?
Yeah.
It was the most surreal, kind of craziest moment that one could have. And there's so much that went into it. Oh my God. Like, not even the technical side, but the LOI that they give you, which is a letter of intent that happened on my anniversary when I was in New York, when I got a call saying, like, we want to purchase these companies. Then I negotiated the deal on Halloween by myself in an office in downtown Chicago with the CEO and CFO. I remember that night I left a 7 or 8 hour session of negotiating this deal without a deal because I wasn't going to sell the company for less than what I thought it was worth at the time. And I got down in the elevator and I got a text message and it said, hey, we're going to try to make this happen, stay by your phone tonight. Well, I get home and I go trick-or-treating with the neighborhood. So I'm with a bunch of kids, neighbors, and I can't say anything to anyone.
Right.
And I get a text message and it says, trick-or-treat, check your email. And it's from the CEO. So I check my email and the deal was for even more than I thought they were going to present to me. And I just kind of faded back in this group of parents. And I don't even think I told my wife, honestly, at the time. I called my lawyer. And I was like, you're not going to believe this. He goes, what? I could just tell on the other side how proud and just pleasantly surprised he was.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a million other things that have happened, but those definitely stand out. And I would say a more recent one is I remember the first time we ended up finding out we were going to win the Best Craft Beer Awards, which isn't the biggest award in beer, but 4 months into it, it's just is really a good indicator that you're onto something.
Yeah.
And you took such a big risk when you create a business. It's incredible the risk you take.
Yeah.
And it's hard to communicate that properly.
So those are the highs, but what are some of the lows? Because there's got to be some poignant ones.
There are so many lows, but the difference between most of the lows are they're like little paper cuts. But if you add the weight of all those paper cuts over time, it probably equates to the 1/3 rule that we talked about at the beginning of this. So I'll give a few examples of lows, but nothing has been that low that I haven't pushed through, and that's why I'm here today talking about this. The first thing that comes to mind would be losing a big client pitch. And when I think about my time at Dealer Inspire and leading the company, we were on a rocket ship and we felt so good about everything. We were landing a lot of OEM contracts, so contracts with General Motors and Mercedes. Basically, they were certifying us as a provider to make websites essentially and technology for the car dealer. So it was really big because you have this audience that kind of has to purchase from you because you have the best solution in the space. So we go to pitch Ford, and if you know anything about me or you've been listening to this podcast, I've worked at Ford for 10 years.
Yeah.
I have never not had a Ford vehicle. I love Ford. And we go to pitch Ford in the headquarters. All the providers kind of there. It was like a 2-day thing. It was in Detroit. And we made it to the next round. So we had the executive team, the CEO at the time, and a couple others. And I felt like we just had an amazing pitch. We did everything right. And we found out a week later that we didn't get it, and they chose another provider. And I was just devastated.
Did it feel personal, given your history with Ford in some ways? That was
I
the
wanted
one
to
that you
sell
really...
my truck immediately. I was just so pissed, man, because it was everything led to that moment of now I have this. We did everything right to be able to pitch them and win that business.
What did you say to your team? Like, how did you lead everyone through that?
I don't recall exactly, except there was just disappointment. And I just remember trying to figure out why.
Uh-huh.
But because we had all these wins, I don't think it was as hard for the team. Part of this also was we were growing so fast that it might have been a relief to them, actually, some of them.
Yeah.
And to me, it was very personal. So it was really like a devastating blow. But what you have to do is get up and keep going, even if you don't have action. Sometimes things
Uh-huh.
don't make sense and there's not a lot of clarity. And that's what we did. And then fast forward maybe a year or year and a half later, we ended up getting forward, and they're one
Yeah.
of the biggest providers to this day.
So that has a happy ending in terms of missed opportunity that you stuck with and it came back later. What about where it's like, you know, something you
Mhm.
had and then there's that kind of setback? And maybe it's on the personnel side of things too.
Yeah, I think the personnel is a key one. And there's been many times when I found out we lost like what I thought was a key employee. And I would always have like anxiety over holidays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I knew that someone's going to come back after a long holiday and they're thinking about things and they're realizing this is really tough and time consuming. So I knew the probability of something happening after someone's vacation was a lot more intense than
Yeah.
otherwise. So that gave me anxiety. But then I got a call from our CTO, and this is a guy that was been with me since day one. Had the keys to a lot of the castles that we built. And when you're starting small, you can't envision what you're going to be. So you end up building things that scale with the business, but they're not fully scalable. They're not optimal. And he was just having a tough time, and he ended up quitting very abruptly. And I was like extremely upset because he had been with me as a friend and a coworker and a partner and benefited from some of the upside. And I couldn't understand why he would just leave in that manner. Well, time heals wounds, and now we're friends, and he's actually part of this business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
All right.
helping. He's just an amazing human, and he burnt out like from the communication or lack thereof from the team. And we had grown from when he came on, he was like the third employee, and we'd grown to 900.
Yeah.
Like it was just a different business. But that was challenging nonetheless because it just put a lot of that stress on figuring things out. And I get it now, but at the time I didn't. So that's the other thing is like, can you put yourself in your perspective of that person, what they're going through, what their goals are? And even if you can't, just give it some time and then you might see it differently. So that's my advice there. I will say this though, in every case, we as an employee of an organization feel like we're irreplaceable because of all the things we're doing. There has not been a time when an employee left where we weren't better for it 6 months later.
Wow.
Not one time.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with the quality of the employee. It just forces you to realize the gaps you have in the business and the opportunities that you have and to
Sure.
solve for those in a
Yeah.
different way than you did before.
Did that reduce your anxiety when you realized that? Like,
No, not at all. Like I think now it does though. It gives me the confidence today to say like as critical as my team is. And it's harder when you have a smaller team. When you have a larger team, it's a little bit easier, even though you have different responsibilities. But you will be better off. And it's not to say that employee in that role wouldn't be the best employee you could ever have. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the areas of opportunity, as long as the business is growing and not stagnant, change over time.
mm,
And you might have hired that employee at a point in time and gave them roles and responsibilities that aren't as critical or that need to be modified. And
mm-hmm,
that's a good opportunity to reset. So I
mm-hmm.
look at that as a big positive.
Yeah.
It doesn't change how hard it is, though. It's still hard. If some of the team members came in today and they were resigned, it would be really, really hard. It'd be
Yeah.
a shitty weekend. It would be tough. But I know historically we'd bounce back and we'd be good.
So the headline there is don't let employees take vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's different now. Like the team I have now is like within shouting distance, I'll
Sure.
say. And I love it like that, man. I
Yeah.
love to open my door and say, Arian, Connor.
Yeah.
And they hear me.
Yeah.
When it gets beyond that, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's just you just don't have that same rapport
Right.
necessarily. And especially when you're in the office with someone, like
Yeah.
so critical to establish these relationships. You're seeing people have meaningful conversations. You're bringing them in at different times that aren't planned. It's just different.
Yeah. That I would imagine is part of this. Like, you talked about the small little paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing those conversations and seeing what everyone is working on together have got to be the equivalent of that on the good side of like, there's an energy that is an uplift that
Yeah.
undergirds the big wins.
Yeah. No, totally, man. And that's what I do it for. I love what I do because every day I see where we're going and the progress we're making. And I look at it as I am the major investor in this business, like financially, and 100% of my time is dedicated to it. And this point in my life, I literally take my ego out of play and say, is this sustainable? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And we're scaling and we're doing all these great things. And to see those wins and see this team evolve is like just an incredible feeling. Like I don't know what else I would do, but it's great.
Awesome. Well, I think we should do more of these. People should keep sending in questions, hit the comments.
Want me to talk about the funny anecdotal one quick as we wrap?
Yeah.
So we were building an order for Costco, or we landed an order for Costco, I should say. And if anyone knows Costco, they usually have larger formats. And up to that point, we were making 6-packs. But for Costco, we knew we needed to make a case.
Huh?
And we didn't have any of the equipment to be able to make a case. So we had figured out how to get a cartoner and a tray packer. And these aren't simple machines. These are very complex industrial machines that require a ton of training, a ton of work.
And just to be clear, you didn't have Costco yet. You needed to do this stuff to get.
No, Costco came to us and said, can you guys do this essentially? And we did not have the capability to do it. But I knew we could get the capability to do it, and we would figure out a way either through sending it out somewhere to get it done. But just like everything that we do, I wanted to have tighter control of it because I can't blame it on a third party. And that's the thing. Like Costco wouldn't care if I had an excuse that the third party didn't get to cartoning Costco and that's why we don't have it.
It was on you.
It was on me. Like
Right.
no one cares about your reasoning for shit.
Right.
Just like the bank doesn't care like why you're late on the mortgage. Like it doesn't matter. Point is you got to deliver. So I knew we would deliver one way or another, but the best way was to do it ourselves. So that gave me the confidence to just, okay, let's figure this out. So anyway, in order to package this beer, we needed to make more beer than we've ever made over a very short period of time, which means we had to hustle. We had to figure out shifts in the middle of the night. Bruce, my partner in here, had to literally learn how to use this cartoner and tray packer, and I wanted an owner of the business to own that part of it because I knew he would have the stake in it to get it done, you know? So anyway, shit kept going wrong, like one thing after another. And things were going so bad that I could not possibly predict the next day and what would happen.
You were just ready for something else to go wrong because so many things.
Unfortunately,
had to
we
go
were
wrong.
ready, but could not even predict it. So the rake in our water ton just broke, this stainless steel rake, which means we couldn't filter out the water appropriately from the grain. So we went to Menards and we got a 4x4 to be able to filter this grain out the best we could. So think about the end of a coffee filter. Here's the coffee in the filter. I'm going to throw this out. Well, beer is very similar. It's like, okay, you have this grain, it's spent, just like spent coffee, and you need to get rid of it. Well, in our facility, it basically ejects itself about 300 feet and dumps it into a truck. And that truck has an open bed on it. That open bed gets filled, and then once it's at capacity, the truck driver comes, grabs it, brings us another empty one. And that's how grain gets depleted.
Sure.
Well, the weight of this grain now was substantially heavier because of the water in it. So the driver starts pulling away because they would always come in the middle of the night and decide, oh, I can't drive with this, and dumps it all right outside the dock. So we come in the morning and we have a foot of grain that spans like 20 to 30 feet in every direction. And we're like, holy shit, how do we even clean this up? That turned into the drain clogging and this drain going into this retention pond where the EPA had to come out because the retention pond now was growing like all this shit because grain shouldn't have been in there, and it was getting in there because it was dumped on the dock. That's just an example of like something you can never predict, right?
Right.
It got so bad that I was like, the only thing I know to do is to hire a spiritual healer. So I called my friend Beth, and she like really took this serious, and she came out and we lit sage and we went around the whole entire facility, especially the tray packer, that lauder ton. She went up there and she put sage everywhere. And it worked. Like, we were able to get it done. Part of it, I'm sure, was that. Having a good attitude about it, like thinking differently, being very optimistic. And I hate to say, like, your mindset is like so important there, but man, it is. I'm telling you, like, if you wake up every day and think it's going to rain outside, it's probably going to rain. If you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I'm going to figure this out, like, this is going to be a good outcome today, like, you start to make better decisions. So, anyway, that's a fun story to end it, but there's so many of those little ones that just over time as an entrepreneur you face, and you're like, I got to
Right.
get through this. And sometimes there's not a good answer.
Right.
You just got to keep pushing through.
Think way outside the box.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Beth.
I was gonna say, and you had a friend who's a spiritual healer,
Yeah.
ready to
These
go.
people pop in your lives and
Yeah,
you don't
you
even know
gotta
how you're going to use
save
them.
that card, save that relationship. I might need that.
All
That's
right.
hysterical. All right, more to come.
It's a wrap.